I have another quick academic story I want to show y'all because he is in a studio and we're about 15 minutes from midnight, 15 minutes from 2024. Big salute to the people who are already in 2024 as far as in the East Coast, other countries who be tuning into the platform. Entertainment says shrooms over alcohol. Facts. Super facts. I got me a little, microdose Rick in the building, a little half Grammy inside me, and I'm good. You know what I'm saying? So that's all. I don't even need that, fam. I'm reintroducing myself into the shrooms world. But you don't need nothing, Ak. You'll be all right. Let me see before we get into this New Year stuff here. I want to make sure that we don't pass the time here. Let me give a quick story here about Akademiks before we get off of any type of Akademiks news, because he did mention something. Let me pull it up on the screen for y'all to see. Bada boom, bada bing. He was on his Instagram page talking about what happened to his Spotify deal. I don't know why it's cloudy, but
stupid shit. Oh, I'm gonna tell people I got the letter from Spotify saying we're ending their dealings with you.
Yeah, I don't know why it's cloudy like that. That's how I was looking on my phone earlier when I found this. But hey, it is what it is. That's on them. That's not even on us.
Bro, I signed a 2-year with a 1 option with Spotify. It wasn't making sense for our business on how we were going along. I stopped providing the necessary episodes. They were paying up to a certain point, and then at a certain point, my lawyer, my agent, got notice from them that they're saying, yo, you either got to produce mad more episodes or we're going to terminate. They terminated. I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't know what bitch really thinks she can hold some shit against me.
We love hip hop.
I gladly said, hey, and you notice I ain't slander Spotify at all. Bro, I can't do like 4 episodes a week with some, I ain't about to do that shit. We got into mad conversations about quantity versus quality. Like my lawyer is telling me, just put out anything. Just sit there and talk. Nah, I ain't about to do that. I'm sorry. I'm not no broke ass bitch ass nigga. I'm sorry. I told him, I said, y'all gotta renegotiate the shit, elongate the term, that it could be some shit that I could do. I'm not about to sit here and put out any type of content, my nigga. Okay. That didn't happen.
So that's what happened. No Spotify deal. He wasn't able to meet the obligations for the deal. I don't know if y'all remember when he first started his Spotify deal, he was super excited. Let me see what's going on with that page. Because I feel like he still has the podcast, the Off the Record podcast with DJ Akademiks. That was like the full name. And when he first started the pod, he was super excited. It was like 2 episodes a week. You know, big salute to Spotify. We're going to do this. I'm going to be the best podcast out here. #1 podcaster. And listen, that's all great. But this podcast game, it takes time. It takes effort. It takes consistency. I'm just running through some of his past episodes. Let me see where we can go back. He was very excited about this pod at one point.
Hold on. Listen, man. Tone it off the record with your boy Akademiks, man. One of the only DJ Akademiks, man, on Spotify. Listen to my music, please. Like, it's gonna be good vibes for y'all ladies.
All right, like this was a big deal for him. I remember when he first announced this deal. And he popped it off with the, which episode was that? The 6ix9ine episode. He's had a lot of great guests on this show. But I did see once things started getting a little spotty. Okay? And I'm not even going to say that this has only been an Akademiks thing. This has been a thing with a lot of my favorite podcasts. The schedule started getting a little bit weird where he was promising 3 episodes a week, I think was his original plan. And then after a while, you know, some of those episodes would be solo episodes with him from the crib, kind of doing what he does on stream, but, you know, still having the Spotify thing in the corner, which is technically just a stream that he just pre-recorded. So he started running into a problem. And here's the thing that the problem I think he had with his podcast. And I give this advice to a lot of other people. And don't get me wrong, his podcast obviously is more successful than the We Love Hip Hop podcast, but he's also Akademiks. So once he started as Akademiks. Okay, he didn't start his podcast back like 20 years ago or 10 years ago as Livingston Allen. Let me try this as a nobody. Like, no, you started off from the top, bro. So let's get that out the way. However, he should have had a co-host. He should have had a co-host from the jump. I know Akademiks is a one-man show, but he should have had a co-host from the jump. Because once you put yourself in a position where you're guest dependent, and anybody who I've spoken to behind the scenes, they've heard me say this to them before, right? Look, this is when he was like posting the stats. This is back in May. Okay, May of this year. He was number 3 on the list next to Call Me Daddy and Joe Rogan. But this is on the Spotify list. Okay? It's not of all streaming platforms. Okay, and Joe Rogan, his deal is up this year. I think it's going to be, it might be up now as we speak. He might be renegotiating right now. He might be at the table saying, I'm going to need 500 million. I think Call Her Daddy, the girl from Call Her Daddy got 600 mil or something crazy. Like, this was a big deal. But he needed a co-host. He can't make it guest dependent if you're not going to be able to find intriguing guests to be able to fill the slot 3 times a week. Right now, as far as our schedule, we do 2 episodes a week. Dusty and I do a weekly wrap up of everything that's going on in the scene for the week, and that drops every Monday. And then every Thursday, an interview drops. But if there's no interview, it doesn't mean that Dusty and I can't link up and talk about what's been going on for the last few days and still give you an episode. That's what I'm talking about. Like you see right here.
I feel like you were disappointed how.
This is back in October of 2022, him and Tory Lanez. Originally, this was supposed to be something that him and Tory Lanez were doing from Tory Lanez' studio. And things went a little bit left. Obviously with Tory, he got kind of caught up with his case and it didn't happen. So I think if Tory didn't get into the issues that he had, maybe they would have been a duo, Akademiks and Tory Lanez on a weekly basis. Maybe that would have been the podcast. Y'all would have messed with that? Akademiks and Tory Lanez podcast to see that, you know, see them chop it up. It's like Cam and Mace. They don't need a guest. You could just see them chop it up. Gilly and Wallow. Obviously, Gilly and Wallow interview a lot of people. They have a lot of guests, but they're also entertaining on their own. They can sit there and do an episode where they just chop it up, not even about trending topics, just about whatever, stories that they went through back in the days, and I'll watch. That's entertainment. When Akademiks does his stream by himself, he can stream for 4 hours, 5 hours, no problem. You know, he can pop up the screen above him, you know, watch videos, react to the chat. That's a whole different animal. It's like exactly what we're doing right now. You help to create the blueprint for what we're doing right now. Don't let me backtrack to that old story, bro, because holy. But you needed a co-host. That's what I'll boil it back down to that. You needed a co-host. And you know what? To be honest, I don't even think it would have worked out. right? I think when these bigger entities, these celebrities try to get into the podcast game, they get a unpleasant surprise. Right now, Spotify is actually not giving out these big deals anymore. They're pulling back on giving away these big podcast deals like you've seen Call Me Daddy get, and Joe Rogan and Akademiks and a few other people. Michelle Obama had a podcast. Mad people had podcasts. Okay, they were trying a thing, especially in the pandemic times. They were going crazy. They were just throwing money all over the place. Hey, you, Amy Schumer got a podcast out of that shit. People, do you see an Amy Schumer podcast right now? Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, just because that person's a celebrity, just because they have a lot of notoriety, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to translate to them being a big podcaster. Like Joe Rogan, he built his celebrity along the way of being a bigger and bigger podcaster. Like, obviously he has a whole bunch of other things going on. You know, he had his stint on news radio, that sitcom, that comedy sitcom that was going on back in the days. He did Fear Factor. Okay, but when he got into the podcast game, nobody was listening to podcasts. It wasn't even a thing. So they literally had to build that audience from scratch, like as if he wasn't a celebrity. And most of these guys right now, like he's Joe Budden. Joe Budden built his celebrity status through being a podcaster. Because everybody always goes back to the old story. Oh, nobody cared about Joe Budden's music. Hey, Joe Budden was a reject in the music industry, blah, 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 blah. Oh, wasn't he that guy on Love and Hip Hop? Like, yeah, we know him from those things. But when he started to really amass to where he is now and, you know, get the respect and everything, is he took all of that times when he was down, not when he was up, when he was down, and started his podcast, and that helped turn around his trajectory. Stop me when I'm lying. But it doesn't necessarily translate when you're already up and say, okay, well, now I'm a celeb. It's going to work for me, obviously. Put me on camera, put another celebrity on camera, that's money in the bank. Not necessarily. For example, when the pod first started, I seen Akademiks working out his interviewing skills and learning how to be a good podcaster. It wasn't as easy as being a streamer. When you're streaming by yourself. When you got a guest, you got to give them room to speak. Okay? But at the same time, I seen that developing. I seen that, you know, getting better, and he became a better podcaster. But when it comes to this podcast game, it's not going to be an easy thing when you think you could just insert celebrity and boom, money comes in. So, yeah, I see him right now not having the Spotify deal. He could drop pods anytime he wants. He can, he's putting up the whole episode now up on his YouTube channel. So, and he's got his own thing going on, you know, salute to the Academy. I see Troy Ave got a podcast on his shit. So he's definitely taking that quote unquote L and turning it into a W. So big salute to Akademiks. For anybody who was wondering what happened to his podcast and, you know, why haven't you been seeing it on a consistent schedule? Well, there's your explanation right there.
We love hip hop.